Hello everyone, this is Stephen Balch, your instructor for Intro to Microeconomics at Ozarka College. Today what I'm going to do is give you just a little bit of feedback on the chapters 11 and 12 activities that I finished grading this morning. And then I'm going to tell you what we've got coming up due for chapters 13 and 14. Alright, so like I said, I did finish grading chapters 11 and 12 activities this morning. If you haven't already looked at your grades for those activities and read the corresponding grading comments, go ahead and do that just as soon as you can, and let me know if you have any questions. Most of you did well on the assignment and the discussion, and I really appreciate those of you that put the time and effort into the class. So keep up the good work on that. Now, there were a few of you that didn't answer some of the questions thoroughly and completely. So just make sure that when you're answering the assignment questions that you carefully read each question and read and watch the related textbook sections and videos and thoroughly answer each part of each question using your own words. Okay? It looked like a few of you just kind of ran out of time, and so you kind of did what you could to answer the questions. Some of you, it looked like, instead of reading through the resources and watching the linked videos to learn the concepts that were covered on the assignment questions, you just did Google searches for the information, which gave you incorrect information for your answers. And so I had to count a lot of points off for that because, and this is something that you really need to be aware of because it's also going to affect the next couple of chapters that we work on, is that in economics, there are terms that are used differently depending on the context in which they're used. All right? For example, the substitution effect. When we're looking at the substitution effect and the income effect of in the product market, it means one thing. And then in the labor market, which we're talking about now, it means something completely different. And so when you just put into a Google search the income effect or the substitution effect, probably what it's going to give you is the answer in the context as it relates to the product market, which we've already looked at. But now what we're looking at is the resource market. And specifically on the question, on the assignment, it was asking about the substitution effect and the income effect as it relates to the labor market. And that's a completely different concept when we look at the labor market. And so you have to be aware of that. And you're going to see similar things, similar terms in chapters 13 and 14, which are our next chapters that we're going to be working through. There are things that are just a lot of terms in economics that mean different things depending on the context that we're looking at the time. So just make sure that you're actually, a way to avoid that problem is to actually read through the resources, the textbook resource, and also watch the videos that I've linked that correspond to that particular question on the assignment, and then you don't have that problem because then you'll know what context that the terms are being presented in, and you'll be able to learn about the meanings of those terms in the context in which we're learning about them. Okay? So just kind of keep in mind, and most of you are doing that. Most of you are using the resources, but there are a couple of you that need to keep that in mind, that just because you do a Google search for a particular economic term doesn't mean that you're going to get the correct answer. All right? And that's why it's important to actually use the resources that I provide for you. Okay? All right. Now, the discussion that we had for chapters 11 and 12, I thought that went very well. If you'll remember, that was about the minimum wage. And its impact on businesses and on consumers and so forth. We talked about the pros and cons of raising the national minimum wage. And again, I really appreciate everyone's participation on the discussion. And I really enjoy reading everyone's comments. So hopefully you learned some good information from that, and you were able to kind of see the real world implications of some of the concepts that we're learning about in the course. Okay, all right. And then the chapters 11 and 12 test. Most of you did well on that, but just as a reminder, you can take those chapter tests as many times you want to up until the due date, and your highest grade is automatically recorded. Also, keep in mind that I will be opening up those chapter tests later on in the semester to help you prepare for the final exam. So just kind of keep all that stuff in mind. All right. And that brings us to what we've got coming up due for our next set of activities. So if we click on the activities page in Miles-Arca, right now we are on kind of the middle part of week 10 of the semester. And of course, we don't have anything else due this week. Of course, we just had work due last night. We don't actually have anything due next week either during week 11, but we do have work due early during week 12. Specifically, Monday, November 4th is when chapters 13 and 14 activities are due. So you have the assignment, test, and discussion all due by Monday, November 4th. So you've got just a little over a week to about a week and a half to be working on those activities. All right. Now, chapter 13 covers terms like capital, interest, and corporate finance. Of course, we've already talked about interest a little bit in previous chapters. We've talked about capital just in general terms. But in chapter 13, we're going to go into a lot more detail and talk about capital, interest, and corporate finance. All right. And then chapter 14 is going to cover transaction cost and asymmetric information. All right. And so, again, as you're working through the chapters 13 and 14 activities, especially the assignment, make sure that you carefully read each part of each question and that you use the resources that are provided. And let me go ahead and click on the assignment page where I can remind you, you've got PowerPoint slides here that I've linked for you under resources, and also the videos that do a really good job of explaining the concepts that are covered in the chapters. So make sure that you're using those resources. That's going to help you to answer the questions effectively. All right? Make sure you're using your own words. Don't just do a Google search again or use AI to find the answers, because the answers that you end up with are probably going to be incorrect. Because again, they're a lot of the terms in economics mean different things depending on what type of market you're talking about. All right? So just make sure that you're actually using the resources provided. All right? And like I said, most of you are, but there are some of you that need to start doing that. Okay? All right. And like I said, even though these activities for chapters 13 and 14 aren't due for about a week and a half, you don't want to wait until the last day or two before they're due to get started, because things can come up, you can forget, and so I would really highly recommend getting started now and work on them next week, get them completed and turned in as soon as you can, and that way you don't have the risk of forgetting to get them submitted. Okay, so and like I said, as you're working on those activities, let me know if you have any questions at all. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions at all that you have as you're working through those activities. All right, and so that's really all I have for you for today. So enjoy your weekend, enjoy next week, and I will talk to you again sometime the following week. Thank you.